This season of UCL is little different, as the 6 games of the group stage will be compressed into 9 weeks to be completed before the World Cup. There will be no time for the teams to reset if they had a bad start. An injury that might have kept a player out for 2 games could keep him for 4. Fatigue may become a factor. There are more unknowns in this group stage than there have been in the long time, and it could be a surprise. Group A. After 3 games, Napoli with brilliant performance, 3 wins and scored 13 goals, stick on top of the group. Luciano Spalletti's side, inspired by the brilliant young Georgian Kvara, is top of the Serie A table so far this season. Liverpool, which only lost to Napoli, placed second with 6 points. It's not a quiet crisis time, but the scale of Sadio Mane and numerous early season injuries have left Jurgen Klopp's side lacking its familiar intensity. Virgil van Dijk and Trent have not been at their best form, even Mo Salah. There is little comfort to be found for Liverpool in the Champions League, with Napoli and Rangers representing the toughest away trip imaginable. Ajax may not quite be the force of old. After 5 seasons under Erik ten Hag that yielded 3 league titles, it is now managed by Alfred Schreuder, who managed Hoffenheim and was assistant at both Ajax and Barcelona before winning the Belgium title with Club Brugge last season. He has to deal with remarkable young talents. Anthony Martinez, Onana, Sebastian Aller, Marzoui and Ryan Gravenberch have all departed. Rangers showed its European nature in reaching the Europa League final last season, but they lost first 3 games. In this group, there is a surprise from Club Brugge side, which has 9 points in 3 games. Took the Belgian title in the playoff last season. It's going to be a tough group for them, but they showed their value in UCL. For Atletico, the story seems always the same. Can Diego Simeone adapt his football to a changing world? What usually happens is that he attempts to be more open, then it starts to go wrong, and sometime in the winter he goes back to basic. This squad is relatively stable, although economic problems are mounting. Sergio Conceição's Porto could take advantage. Porto has become habitually awkward opponent in Europe in recent years. There's been the usual summer flux at the Portuguese champion, with 6 players departing of key players. The situation at Bayer Leverkusen is far from of their form, which I remember. They lost 2 games of 3 just like Atletico Madrid and Porto. Group C. Bayern has begun life without Lewandowski impressively in the Bundesliga. Mane and Matthias de Ligt have been signed. They showed their quality. 3 games, 9 points, 9 goals without conceding a goal. After Barcelona's controversial summer of spending, made possible only by the sale of significant assets, there comes an immediate test. Bayern beat it twice last season as Barcelona slumped out in the group stage, having brought in Rafinha, Frankesi, Andres Christensen, Jules Koundé, and most significantly, Robert Lewandowski, who has his own point to make to Bayern. This could give an indication of whether Barca is again ready to compete with the best, but they lost to Bayern and Inter in away games, although it's not even clear what those hopes are these days, as it has been 11 years since Inter Milan reached the quarterfinal. But they started a good season in this group so far. They have a potential to go through, but they will have 2 tough away games with Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Victor Pellegrin, meanwhile, is unbeaten in their league so far this season, but they couldn't resist in front of big European club and lost their first 3 games. Group D. In this group, Sporting leading by 6 points of 3 games so far. Sporting finished 6 points behind Porto last season. They are full of young talents such as Ward, willing to grow through to the next step. There is a logic in the Europa League winner being handed a place in pot 1 of Champions League. But this is a season in which that means there is one seeded team that is significantly weaker than the others. There have been major changes to the squad, the most significant being the loss of Filip Kostic to Juventus, but they have a fairly performance in first 3 games with 4 points. Tottenham has the stadium and perhaps now it has the manager and the squad. Antonio Conte's energy and drive has transformed the mentality, and while some doubts remain about the way the midfield can be run over, the arrival of Richarlison and Ivan Perisic have added depth and as well as ability. This has been a summer of spending at Marseille, being slashed on trying to build, but they are not in a good situation so far with only 3 points. Group E. It's a very close range group so far by leading up Salzburg by 5 points of 3 games, but all of them have a chance to going through from this group. RB Salzburg is by far the most successful Austrian side in recent memory and reached the last 16 last season. Chelsea's start to the season has been inconsistent. They spent a lot of money for Sterling and Wesley Fofana, and recently they replaced Graham Potter as a new manager, which is a big test for him. They just earned 4 points of 3 games, and this week a big match against AC Milan in San Siro. Winning the Scudetto for the first time in 11 years was a first step in restoring AC Milan to greatness. The next stage is European progress, but it has been 10 years since AC Milan, the 7-time European champion, last reached the quarterfinal. They hope to go through from this group with players like Leao and Hernandez. So far, they just have a win against Dinamo Zagreb and draw with Salzburg, but they lost to Chelsea in Stamford Bridge. They are look forward to this week against them for a revenge. Dinamo Zagreb has won 16 of 17 Croatian titles, but has only won 4 of 39 group stage games in UCL. It's too good domestically, but not good enough for Europe. They have slight chance with the big victory against Chelsea in the first match. Group F. Real Madrid's successes in last season's Champions League was based on individual excellence of Karim Benzema, Luka Modric and Thibaut Courtois, coupled with an amazing self-belief. Changes have been limited with Casemiro leading and Tchouaméni arriving. Anthony Rudiger stiffness the defensive line, but this remains an aging squad. They won first 3 games and probably going through easily. Shakhtar began the Ukrainian season 8 months after its last league fixture. That Ukrainian teams are playing again is remarkable. Shakhtar's home games in Champions League will be staged in Warsaw. Perhaps they should work harder with this squad that has lost numerous players since the war began. The performance was more than that I expect so far with 4 points of 3 games. The season began with RB Leipzig optimistic it would represent the main challenge to Bayern in this Bundesliga season, with Timo Werner rejoining. In UCL they didn't perform as I expected and they just won last game against Celtic. Celtic wasn't impressive in winning the league title last season and also on a good form in this season, but they were not good enough this season by only 1 point of 3 games in UCL. Group G. Last season followed the familiar pattern of European failure for Manchester City, as it conceded twice in the final minutes to throw away a semi-final it had largely dominated against Real Madrid. The arrival of Erling Haaland was good enough that we forgot the sale of Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling. Haaland is offering greater ruthlessness in this season with 9 of 9 points so far. The Norwegian faced an early reunion with Dortmund with a superbly goal. For Dortmund, Edin Terzic represents a return to its roots. He was an assist to Klopp between 2010 and 13. Haller, Ademi and Anthony Modeste have arrived to fill the hole left by Haaland, although Haller is out after being diagnosed with testicular cancer. Sevilla's shows was completely unexpected, although they had less chance than Dortmund, but the difference is a lot. Sevilla and FC Copenhagen were easy component for City and Dortmund. Sevilla with scoring only 1 goal and Copenhagen without scoring a goal with only 1 point have slight chance for going through of this group. Group H. PSG has scored 17 goals in its first 3 league games of the Ligue 1 this season, with Lionel Messi more eager and Neymar on good form, but PSG has regularly found in the past that bears little relation to European progress. Christophe Gatelier is new coach to do what they want in UCL. They are leading the group by 7 points. Benfica may have lost Darwin Núñez this summer, but Roger Schmidt's side has started the season impressively. They beat Juventus in Turin and they have a big chance to going through from this group by 7 points from 3 games so far. Fourth in each of last 2 seasons, Juventus is hoping to come out of transition. There were signs of improvement in the second half of last season, but there is a pressure on Max Allegri to show that he is capable of restoring Juve to the sort of level it was at before. Paul Pogba, Di Maria, Kostic are arrived. 3 points after 3 games is totally disappointing performance by Juventus. Maccabi Haifa, in its first group stage appearance for 13 years, is the lowest ranked side remaining in the competition. They lost all the first 3 games. It could be a great experience for them by facing with big clubs in Europe.